The deep space research vessel Star Seeker drifted silently through the dark void between stars. Dr. James Walker stood at his workstation in the biology lab, organizing his samples from their latest planetary survey. After 5 years in space, he had studied countless alien life forms, but something still felt missing from his research. The ship's intercom crackled to life. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. Captain Miller's voice carried an edge of tension that made James look up from his work. He quickly secured his samples and headed for the bridge. When he arrived, the main view screen showed a damaged alien ship floating dead in space. Its hull was scarred with deep gashes, and emergency lights pulsed weakly along its sides. "Life signs?" James asked, stepping closer to the screen. "One," replied Tom, their sensor operator. "But it's strange. Unlike anything in our database." Captain Miller turned to face his crew. "We're mounting a rescue operation. Dr. Walker, we'll need you to assess any biological hazards. Suit up." 20 minutes later, James floated through the alien ship's dark corridors with 3 security officers. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing deep claw marks in the walls. The air was thick with tension. "Over here," called Officer Banks, pointing to a sealed door. "The life sign is coming from inside." As they approached, James noticed something odd. A warning message flashed on the door in multiple alien languages. He activated his translator implant, and the words appeared in his vision. "Danger. Class 5 predator containment. Do noti open." "Hold on," James said, moving to a nearby computer terminal. "Let me check the ship's logs first." The last entry played through his implant. "This is Captain Rax of the research vessel Stellar Wind. We made a terrible mistake. The beast we captured, it's not just an animal. It's something more. Too intelligent. Too careful. It escaped containment an hour ago. Most of my crew, they're gone now. If anyone finds this ship, destroy it. The beast must not reach populated space. It's too dangerous too." The message cut off with a scream. James's heart raced, but his scientific curiosity piqued. "The creature's still in there," he said, pointing to the sealed door. "But these readings, they're incredibly complex." "We should space it," Banks suggested. Captain's orders were clear about threats. James shook his head. "No. Look at these brainwave patterns. They're structured, organized. This isn't just an animal acting on instinct." Before anyone could respond, a deep vibration rumbled through the ship's hull. James felt it in his bones. It wasn't random. It had a pattern, almost like speech. "Everyone quiet," James whispered. He pressed his hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations. They came again. Different this time, like a question. "Dr. Walker, step back from the wall," Banks ordered, raising his weapon. But James stayed still, fascinated. The ship's computer had readings from the creature's containment period. Its brain activity showed signs of language processing, problem solving, and even emotional responses. This was no mindless beast. The vibrations came a third time, gentler now. James made a decision that would change his life and humanity's place in the galaxy. He reached for the door controls. "Stop," Banks shouted. "That's an order." "Look at the data," James insisted. "Whatever's in there, it's intelligent. It's been responding to our presence. If we kill it, we might be destroying the last member of an entire sentient species." Through the door's small window, James caught his first glimpse of the creature. In the darkness, he saw scales that seemed to swallow light, eyes that glowed with intelligence, and a form that moved with deadly grace. But what struck him most was how it watched them, not with mindless hunger, but with careful calculation and curiosity. The creature pressed closer to the window, and James saw something in those eyes that the alien crew had missed in their fear: awareness, intelligence, and loneliness. His communicator crackled. "Dr. Walker, report your status," Captain Miller demanded. James took a deep breath. knowing his next words would either be brilliantly right or fatally wrong. "Captain, we need to rethink everything we've been told about predator species. I don't think we're dealing with a simple creature here. I think we've just made first contact with something extraordinary." The vibrations came again, and this time, James was sure they were trying to talk back. Captain Miller's voice thundered through the damaged alien ship. "Dr. Walker, step away from that door immediately." James stood his ground. "Captain, if you could just see these readings." "That's an order," Miller interrupted. "Banks, get him out of there." The security officer reached for James's arm, but another series of vibrations shook the ship. This time, they felt different, almost like a song. The creature behind the door moved with the rhythm, its scales shifting colors slightly. "Wait," James said quietly. "Everyone just wait." He pulled out his tablet and started recording the vibrations. The pattern was complex but structured, repeating every 30 seconds with slight variations. Banks kept his weapon raised. "Doctor, we need to leave. Now." "Give me 5 minutes," James pleaded. He pressed a button on his suit, sending a small vibration through the floor. The creature immediately stopped, then repeated James's pattern back perfectly. James's heart raced with excitement. It's mimicking. This is communication. Back on the Starseeker, Captain Miller paced in the quarantine lab where they'd moved the sealed container holding the creature. James stood on the other side of the safety barrier, monitoring his instruments. "You're telling me," Miller said slowly, "that this thing, which killed an entire alien crew, is actually intelligent?" James nodded eagerly. The ship's logs were wrong. "Look at these patterns." He showed Miller his tablet. "These aren't random. They're organized like language. I'm calling him Rex." "You named it." Miller rubbed his temples. "Doctor, this isn't one of your pets. It's a dangerous predator that." A low vibration cut through the room. Rex had pressed against the container wall, its eyes fixed on James. The creature's scales shifted to a deep blue color. "See that?" James pointed excitedly. "The color change happens with specific vibration patterns. It's not just sound, it's a complete communication system." Miller frowned. "I'm giving you 24 hours to prove it's not a threat. After that, we follow standard protocol for dangerous specimens." James worked through the night, recording and analyzing Rex's patterns. He created a simple device that could send vibrations through the floor, testing different frequencies. Each time he sent a pattern, Rex responded, often adding new variations. By morning, James had mapped 30 distinct vibration patterns. He noticed that some made Rex's scales turn warm colors, while others triggered cool shades. The creature showed remarkable patience, repeating patterns slowly when James made mistakes. "Look at this," James told his assistant, Mike, pointing to his screen. "When I send patterns for food or threat, Rex's body language changes completely. But when I send patterns like curious or friendly, he stays relaxed. He understands concepts." Mike looked nervous. "But Dr. Walker, what if it's just learning how to trick us?" James shook his head. "That's what everyone assumes about predator species. But think about it. Earth's top predators like dolphins and wolves are highly social and intelligent. Why would space be any different?" Later that day, James made a breakthrough. He sent a pattern asking about Rex's home. The creature's response was long and complex, filled with repeating elements that suggested grammar. But what stunned James was the emotion in the movements. Rex's scales darkened to almost black, and the vibrations became so soft they were barely noticeable. "Your mourning," James whispered. "Your whole species. That's what the alien logs meant about hunting them." Rex pressed a claw gently against the container wall, making a pattern James now recognized as yes. The door slid open, and Captain Miller walked in with 2 security officers. "Time's up, Doctor. Have you proved it's safe?" James stood between them and Rex's container. "I can prove it's intelligent. Look at these communication patterns. They show clear signs of language, emotional expression. And that wasn't the question. Miller cut him off. Is it safe? James looked back at Rex, who watched the scene with those intelligent eyes. The creature could have easily broken out. James had seen the strength of those claws. But instead, Rex chose to communicate, to learn, to connect. He's safer than we are, James said firmly. And I'm not letting you space him. Miller's face hardened. Then you leave me no choice. Guards, remove Dr. Walker from the lab. We'll handle this according to protocol. As the guards approached, Rex's scales flashed bright red, and a warning vibration shook the room. But James noticed something crucial. The pattern wasn't a threat. It was protection. James found himself locked in his quarters, but he couldn't stop thinking about Rex. The creature's warning vibration had been clear. It wasn't threatening the guards. It was trying to protect James from what it saw as a threat. This changed everything he thought he knew about predator species. His tablet blinked with an incoming message from Mike. They're planning to move Rex to the cargo bay tomorrow. Military ship coming in 3 days. James's heart sank. 3 days to prove Rex's intelligence to people who didn't want to understand. He needed evidence no one could ignore. Using his access to the ship's systems, James hacked into the security feed of Rex's containment room. The creature sat quietly, its scales a deep blue of sadness. Every few minutes, it would send out a vibration pattern, the same one it had used when James asked about its home. James used his tablet to send a vibration through the ship's hull. I help. You talk. Rex's scales brightened immediately. The response came in clear patterns. Others fear, not understand, like before. Over the next few hours, James pieced together Rex's story. The Shadowhunters, as their official name translated, had once been peaceful space farmers. Their ability to change scale color helped them absorb different types of starlight or energy. They used their natural weapons only for harvesting tough space plants. Why hunt you? James asked through vibrations. Rex's patterns became sharp, angry. Fear power. Fear different. Say monster. Attack first. Your claws, James sent. The alien ship. Defend only, Rex responded. Try talk. They shoot. No choice. James recorded everything, building a database of Rex's language patterns. He noticed something fascinating. Rex used different vibration frequencies for past, present, and future events. This wasn't just communication. It was a complete language with grammar and tense. A soft knock at his door surprised him. Mike stood there, looking nervous. You should see this, Mike whispered, handing James a datapad. I found old records about the Shadowhunters. The official Galactic Council reports say they were mindless killers, but look at these dates. James studied the records. The first reports of Shadowhunter violence came after mining companies started claiming their home systems. Before that, there were centuries of peaceful trade. They were defending their homes, James said quietly. The Council helped big companies steal their worlds, then labeled them as monsters when they fought back. Mike nodded. There's more. Their scales don't just change color. They can absorb and redirect energy. Some scientists thought they could become the most powerful military force in the galaxy. So the Council decided to eliminate them first. James finished. Classic case of fear driving violence. A sudden alarm blared through the ship. James rushed to his tablet. Rex's containment room was filled with gas. They're trying to sedate him for transport. James grabbed his portable vibration device. Mike, help me get out of here. Mike hesitated, then used his security card to open James's door. Don't make me regret this. James ran to the containment room, sending urgent vibrations. Rex, stay calm. Pretend sleep. Inside the room, Rex lay still, scales dulled to gray. Captain Miller stood with the security team, looking satisfied. Perfect timing, Doctor, Miller said. Your intelligent being didn't even try to resist the gas. some superior species. James watched Rex carefully. The creature's scales were too perfectly gray, too evenly spaced. He was faking. "Captain," James said carefully, "I have proof of the Shadowhunter's history. Before anyone moves Rex, you need to see these records." Miller waved him off. "I have orders directly from the Galactic Council. This creature is classified as a level 5 threat. Nothing you show me will change that." "Then why did they change the classification?" James asked, playing his last card. "The records show Shadowhunters were peaceful for centuries. Something made the Council fear them enough to destroy them. Don't you want to know what?" Rex's scales flickered slightly, a pattern meaning truth spoken. Miller paused, his hand hovering over the transport controls. "You have 5 minutes to show me this proof. After that, we do this my way." James took a deep breath. 5 minutes to change decades of prejudice. But as he looked at Rex, who had chosen peace even when threatened, he knew he had to try. James quickly pulled up the historical records on the main screen. "Look here, Captain. First contact with the Shadowhunters, 300 years ago. Peaceful trade agreements, cultural exchange programs. And then they turned violent." Miller interrupted. "No, look at the dates." James pointed to the screen. "The first attacks happened right after the mining guild got permission to harvest their outer worlds. The guild called them aggressive, but they were protecting their farms." Miller studied the records, his frown deepening. Behind him, Rex remained perfectly still, playing unconscious. A new alarm blared through the ship. Mike burst into the room, out of breath. "Captain. Emergency transmission from Galactic Council ship Justice Bringer. They're already here." Miller's face changed. A small smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Right on schedule." James's blood ran cold. "Schedule? You called them early." "Of course I did." Miller straightened his uniform. "Did you really think I'd risk my career over some monster's rights? The Council pays well for handling problematic species quietly." The room's main door slid open. 4 heavily armed soldiers in Council uniforms marched in, led by a tall official in a black uniform. "Commander Wells," Miller saluted. "The specimen is sedated and ready for transport." "Good work, Captain." Wells handed Miller a credit chip. "The Council appreciates your discretion in this matter." James stepped forward. "This is wrong. Rex's species was peaceful until—" A soldier slammed the butt of his rifle into James's stomach. He fell to his knees, gasping. "Rex is the scientific name you gave it." Wells laughed. "How cute. Load the creature into the stasis pod. And put this emotional scientist in the brig until we're gone." As 2 soldiers approached Rex's still form, James managed to hit the button on his vibration device. The pattern meant now. Rex's scales flashed brilliant white. Before anyone could react, he moved with incredible speed, but not to attack. Instead, he grabbed James with surprising gentleness and leaped over the soldiers. "Stop them!" Miller shouted. Rex's scales rippled with patterns. James understood the message. "Trust me. Hold tight." They raced through the ship's corridors. Rex moved with perfect efficiency, using his claws to slide along walls and ceiling when needed. Behind them, alarms screamed and boots thundered. "The shuttle bay," James gasped. 2 levels down. Rex's scales flashed acknowledgement. They reached a sealed security door, but Rex simply sliced through it like paper. Mike's voice came over James's personal communicator. "James, I've unlocked Shuttle 3 and started its engines, but they're sealing all exits." "Thanks, Mike," James said. "Delete my research files before they get them." They reached the shuttle bay just as blast doors began closing. Rex moved even faster, diving through the narrowing gap with James. They rolled into the waiting shuttle. James scrambled to the controls. "Strap in." Well, somehow. Rex wrapped his claws around a support beam as James fired the engines. The shuttle shot out of the bay moments before the blast doors slammed shut. All ships, open fire. Miller's voice crackled over the general channel. That creature is not to escape. The Star Seeker's defense turrets turned toward them. But Rex's scales began to pulse with energy. James remembered Mike's words about absorbing and redirecting energy. They're firing, James yelled. Rex's scales blazed like a sun. The laser blasts hit them but didn't cause damage. Instead, Rex channeled the energy through his scales, forming a glowing shield around the shuttle. James punched in the emergency faster-than-light jump sequence. Hold on. Behind them, the Council ship Justice Bringer was powering up its main weapons. But they were too late. The shuttle jumped into FTL speed, leaving both ships behind. When they were safely away, James slumped in his chair. That's why they really feared your people, isn't it? Not because you were violent, but because you could defend against their weapons. Rex's scales shifted to a calm blue. The vibration pattern was clear. Truth. Defense only. Never attack first. James checked their course. We've got enough fuel to reach the outer colonies, but they'll be hunting us now. Rex moved to the co-pilot's seat, his patterns gentle but determined. Together. Find truth. Find others. James nodded. They were both fugitives now, but they had a chance to expose the Council's lies. And maybe, just maybe, they could find more surviving shadow hunters. The stars streaked by as they fled into the unknown, human and predator, now unlikely allies in their quest for justice. After 3 days of jumping between star systems, James and Rex finally stopped at a small mining outpost on the edge of known space. They needed supplies, and their shuttle's fuel was running low. Stay hidden, James told Rex as he landed. I'll try to be quick. Rex's scales shifted to a worried green pattern. Dangerous. Many hunters. I know, but we don't have a choice. James checked their remaining supplies. We need fuel and food. The outpost was a rough place, filled with miners, smugglers, and people who didn't ask questions. James kept his hood up as he traded some of his personal items for supplies. Everything went smoothly until he heard a familiar news broadcast on the station's screens. Dangerous fugitives wanted by the Galactic Council. Dr. James Walker, accused of stealing a highly dangerous specimen. Approach with extreme caution. Reward offered. James hurried back to the shuttle, but 3 rough-looking bounty hunters blocked his path. Going somewhere, Doc. One of them growled. The Council's paying good money for you. James backed away slowly. You don't understand what's happening. The Council is lying. Don't care about politics, another hunter said. Just credits. They moved to grab him, but suddenly stopped, looking up in fear. A shadow fell over them as Rex dropped silently from the ceiling, scales glowing with a soft, warning red. The bounty hunters reached for their weapons, but Rex simply stood there, making no aggressive moves. His scales rippled with complex patterns that James now understood meant. Peace offered. Violence unnecessary. It's not attacking, one hunter whispered. Because he's not a mindless killer, James explained quickly. Everything you've heard about shadow hunters is a lie. The Council hunted them because they were afraid of their abilities. Rex's scales shifted to calming blues and greens. Slowly, carefully, he extended one clawed hand toward the nearest hunter in a clearly peaceful gesture. The hunters looked at each other, confused. This wasn't the murderous beast they'd expected. Look, James said, you can try to capture us and claim your reward. But first, let me show you something. He pulled out his tablet and played the historical records he'd saved. The hunters watched in silence as the truth about the shadow hunters unfolded. The Council's been lying for years, the lead hunter finally said. But why show us this? We could still turn you in. Rex's scales flickered with a pattern meaning truth matters more than fear. Something changed in the hunters' faces. The leader lowered his weapon. Get out of here. We never saw you. James and Rex made it back to their shuttle and took off quickly. As they broke orbit, James noticed Rex's scales had shifted to a new color he hadn't seen before. "What does that pattern mean?" he asked. Rex's response translated roughly to, "Hope. Others understand when shown truth." Their moment of peace didn't last long. Alarms blared as 3 Council patrol ships appeared on their sensors. "They're boxing us in." James worked the controls frantically. Rex moved to the shuttle's power core, scales beginning to glow. But instead of forming a shield, this time he seemed to be doing something different. Energy flowed from his scales into the ship's systems. The shuttle's engines surged with power they shouldn't have had. They shot forward at impossible speed, easily outrunning the patrol ships. "How did you do that?" James asked in amazement. Rex's pattern explained that shadow hunters could do more than absorb energy. They could share it, enhance it, work with it in ways other species never imagined. As they fled deeper into unexplored space, their sensors picked up an unusual reading. Rex's scales suddenly blazed with excitement. "What is it?" James asked. The pattern was clear: home. Others. Safe place. They followed the reading to a dense asteroid field. Rex guided them through a complex path until they emerged in a hidden pocket of space. There, built into a massive asteroid, was a secret station. And on their screens, more patterns appeared, the same kind Rex used. Other shadow hunters, talking to each other. "A hidden colony," James whispered. "You're not the last one after all." Rex's scales glowed with joy as they approached the station, but his final pattern carried a warning. "Safe for now, but must prepare. Council will never stop hunting." James nodded. They had found other survivors, but their journey wasn't over. Now they had to find a way to protect this sanctuary and expose the Council's crimes to the entire galaxy. The hidden Shadowhunter station was unlike anything James had ever seen. Built inside a massive asteroid, its walls pulsed with living energy, powered by the combined abilities of its inhabitants. About 50 Shadowhunters lived here, the last survivors of their species. The station's leader, a larger Shadowhunter with silver-tinted scales, approached them. Rex's patterns introduced them. Elder Wisdom, Last Memory Keeper. The Elder's patterns were complex but clear. Human Friend, Unexpected, Welcome. James watched in amazement as the Elder's scales shifted through patterns that told the complete history of their people. The story confirmed everything they have discovered, but with new details that made James's blood run cold. "The Council didn't just fear your defensive abilities," James said as he understood the patterns. "They feared your potential to unite other species." The Elder's pattern meant yes. Before the Council's betrayal, the Shadowhunters had been working to create a new alliance of species that the Council couldn't control. Their ability to share energy could have freed many worlds from depending on Council technology. "Show records," Rex suggested. "Proof here." The Elder led them to a secure room deep in the station. The walls were covered with data crystals, each containing evidence of the Council's crimes, not just against the Shadowhunters, but against dozens of species. "This is incredible," James said, downloading the data. "But why haven't you used this information before?" The Elder's patterns turned sad. No voice. No one trust. All fear. Rex added, "Need human friend. Bridge between." James understood. The Shadowhunters needed someone who could speak for them, someone from a species the galaxy would listen to. Humans were new enough to space travel that they weren't bound by old prejudices. Suddenly, alarms rang through the station. A Shadowhunter rushed in, scales flashing urgent patterns. "Council ships," James translated. "But how did they find us?" The Elder's patterns showed grim understanding. "Tracker. In shuttle." They rushed to the station's control room. The screens showed 5 Council battleships approaching the asteroid field. "They'll kill everyone," James said. "We have to get this evidence out now." Rex's patterns suggested a bold plan. Emergency broadcast. All channels. Truth to all. "They'll block standard transmissions," James argued. The Elder's scales lit up with a pattern of determination. "Together. Channel energy. Boost signal." James watched in awe as all the Shadowhunters in the station linked claws, forming a chain of energy. Their scales began to pulse in harmony, building power. The data crystal, Rex guided James. Connect to transmitter. James plugged the crystal into the station's communications array. The Shadowhunters' combined energy surged through the system, amplifying the signal far beyond its normal capacity. Broadcasting, James announced. Every screen in Council space should be receiving this. The evidence played across the galaxy. Historical records, secret council meetings, orders for the genocide, everything. But more importantly, it showed the truth about the Shadowhunters. Their peaceful nature, their desire to help others, their choice to share energy rather than steal it. The council ships entered weapons range. Their commander's voice boomed over the comm. This is your only warning. Surrender the criminals and prepare for sterilization of this illegal settlement. But something unexpected happened. Other ships began appearing. Merchant vessels, independent traders, even some planetary defense forces. All of them had seen the broadcast. All of them had chosen to act. A familiar voice came over the comm. This is Captain Tom Blake of the Free Traders Alliance. We've seen the evidence. The council ships will stand down, or we will open fire. More ships arrived every minute. The council commander's voice wavered. This is an internal council matter. Not anymore. Another ship captain responded. The truth is out. The game is over. The council ships held position, suddenly outnumbered. The Elder's scales glowed with a pattern of victory tinged with sadness for all that had been lost. James looked at Rex, whose patterns showed both joy and determination. This wasn't the end of their journey, but it was the beginning of justice. The galaxy would never see the Shadowhunters as monsters again. The Elder's final pattern glowed clearly for all to see. Truth frees. Understanding grows. Hope returns. 3 months after the standoff at the hidden station, James stood before the newly formed Galactic Species Council. The old council had collapsed after the evidence of their crimes became public. Now, representatives from all spacefaring species gathered to build something better. Rex stood beside James, scales glowing with calm blue patterns. Around the chamber, other Shadowhunters watched from designated spots, their presence both guarding and symbolic. Some delegates still showed fear, but most looked on with interest and respect. Dr. James Walker, the head speaker, announced, "You and your Shadowhunter allies have changed our understanding of galactic society. Please, share your proposals for the future." James stepped forward. "When I first met Rex, everyone told me he was a monster. They were wrong. The Shadowhunters show us that our fears often blind us to the truth." He activated a holographic display showing the new trade routes and energy-sharing programs the Shadowhunters had designed. With the Shadowhunters' help, we can power ships and stations more efficiently than ever. Their ability to enhance and share energy could end resource wars and help developing worlds. A delegate raised an objection, but their power could still be used for weapons. Rex moved forward, scales shifting to display complex patterns. James translated, "Power exists to share, not harm. We choose peace, always." To demonstrate, Rex invited the nervous delegate to approach. When they did, Rex gently touched their hand. The delegate gasped as they felt the warm energy flow, healing their old injury. "This is what the old council feared," James explained. "Not that the Shadowhunters would hurt us, but that they would show us a better way, a way without control through fear." The chamber erupted in discussion. James watched as more delegates approached the Shadowhunters, experiencing their gifts firsthand. Fear turned to wonder, then to understanding. The head speaker called for order. "We will vote on the proposals. First, official recognition of Shadowhunter rights and territory." The vote was nearly unanimous in favor. Second, the establishment of human Shadowhunter cultural exchange programs, as proposed by Dr. Walker. Again, the votes glowed green for approval. Finally, the appointment of Shadowhunter representatives to the new Council's Energy Distribution Committee. The third vote passed easily. James smiled as he remembered how differently things had gone in this same chamber just months ago. After the session, James and Rex walked through the Council Station's observation deck. Through the windows, they could see ships being fitted with new Shadowhunter energy-sharing systems. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" James asked. Rex's patterns showed joy mixed with thoughtful reflection. "Hope always. Trust human friend. Trust truth." They watched as a group of young aliens gathered around another Shadowhunter, learning about energy patterns. No fear, no prejudice. Just curiosity and wonder. Captain Miller's trial had ended last week. He and other former council officials faced justice for their crimes, but more importantly, their victims could finally tell their stories. A small child from a developing world approached Rex, holding up a toy spaceship. Rex's scales shifted to gentle, playful colors as he showed the child how to feel the energy flowing through the station. "Ambassador Walker," a staff member called. "The new training program candidates are ready for their interviews." James smiled at his new title. The cultural exchange program had more applicants than they could handle, humans and aliens eager to learn from the Shadowhunters. "The old council was right about one thing," James said to Rex. "You did change everything, just not in the way they feared." Rex's final pattern glowed with wisdom. Change through friendship, understanding through trust, future through peace. Together, they walked toward the training center, where the next generation of diplomats waited to learn the truth about the galaxy's most misunderstood species. The stars shone brightly through the station windows, no longer a place of darkness and fear, but a frontier of new possibilities. Behind them, the station hummed with the combined energy of dozens of species working together, proving that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a creature's claws or teeth, but the fear that keeps us from seeing their heart.